Engel for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, everybody. Dr. McFarland, congratulations. I want to talk to you about Indian Point in New York City suburbs. It's one of the most serious issues facing New York. Indian Point is located, obviously, by our nation's largest metropolitan area. It has an operational history that has been plagued by irresponsible acts, unplanned shutdowns, lacking spent fuel pools, and inadequate emergency notification and response systems. One of the planes, hijacked on September 11th, flew over Indian Point on its way to the World Trade Center. We've learned that the plant is located near two seismic faults that together raise the possibility of an earthquake far larger than any anticipated when it was built. And there simply isn't enough roads to allow for a real evacuation in the event of an accident or attack. Neither of the county executives in both Westchester County, which I represent, and Rockland County, which I also represent, both county executives, one Republican, one Democratic, have refused to certify the evacuation plans for Indian Point because they know they're ridiculous. Indian Point's two active reactors are set to retire in 2013 and 2015 unless their application for relicensing are approved. And there's always been a cozy relationship, unfortunately, between the NRC and the industry, which in my opinion has precluded a serious and realistic evaluation of the safety of Indian Point. I've toured it. I've been there with your predecessor, Dr. McFarland, and I'm interested in meeting with you to discuss Indian Point in greater detail and perhaps tour with me and Congresswoman Lowy. Would you be willing to arrange a time to meet with me and talk?
Would I be willing to do that in the future? Absolutely. I would be willing to talk with you about it and visit it together with you.
Thank you. And let me say at the outset, I am not opposed to nuclear power. I never issued a peep about Indian Point until September 11th, when it became clear to many of us that this was a safety hazard. So thank you. I want to talk about decommissioning. It's an expensive process. The New York Times reported in March of this year that the operators of 20 of the nation's aging nuclear reactors, including some whose licenses expire soon, have not saved nearly enough money for prompt and proper dismantling. And Entergy, which owns the Indian Point plant, again just 24 miles north of New York City, and is at least $500 million short of the $1.5 billion estimated cost of dismantling Indian Point reactors 2 and 3. Entergy insists that the shortfall won't be a problem because they expect Indian Point to be relicensed for another 20 years. And over that period of time, they expect interest to accrue to sufficient levels in the reactor's retirement accounts. But the fact is that 12 reactors across the country have been retired in the last 3 decades, all on short notice because of a design or safety flaw that the economics did not justify fixing. The shortfall in these retirement accounts raises the possibility that New York could be sitting on sleeping reactors for decades. So, Dr. McFarland, I'd like to ask you, what do you envision happening if one of the nation's 20 underfunded reactors needed to be decommissioned?
Well, I will note that the U.S. has decommissioned a number of reactors, and they have been decommissioned successfully. So it can happen. There can be a positive outcome. As far as how to handle the scenario that you describe, I think we will probably have to visit it if it happens.
Okay. I want to finally talk about relicense criteria because I've long been concerned that the relicensing of aging power plants is not subject to the same stringent criteria used in an application for new power plants for initial construction. So let me ask you this, Doctor. Would you support using the same criteria for relicensing an existing plant as we use to license new plants?
As the brand new plants, it's my understanding that we have a well-established license renewal program. Of course, that doesn't substitute for day-to-day regulatory oversight that's required of the operating plants. There is a lengthy public hearing process that engages a variety of stakeholders in relicensing. And so all of this information is publicly available. And I commit to ensuring that these reactors operate safely.
Thank you. If I may just take about 5 more seconds, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that information that wasn't available when the plant was originally licensed, in my estimation, should that not be considered in re-licensing?
I think it depends on the particular situation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank my colleague. Gentleman's time is expired.